James Bond and John Wick have finally made their long-awaited debut on Death Battle, but in the wrong matchup. I've already talked about the idea 2 times already of how bad it is, so I won't repeat it again. And as the return episode of Season 9, second half, how did it turn out? Well, it's an episode, I guess. I know that sounds bad, but it wasn't so much a bad, but more so pretty unremarkable. Let's get on with the review. That way I can fully explain what I mean by that, because quite frankly, I got some things to talk about. So for starters, I really did enjoy the analysis portion. More so for James Bond, because I really don't know much about the other versions of James Bond outside of Daniel Craig's James Bond. John Wick's, I'm a bit iffy on. Don't get me wrong, I like what they mentioned. His backstory from being the deadliest assassin to wanting revenge on the kid who killed the last thing he had from his wife, and him fighting basically the whole world and such. But I don't necessarily like how they went about tackling John Wick's character. In the end of the analysis, they mentioned that John Wick won't stop killing until there's no one left. When in reality, John Wick kinda just wants to retire. Remember, he never wanted to continue being an assassin when he killed his former boss's son. He only wanted revenge for the kid killing his dog that his wife gave him after she died. In John Wick Chapter 2, we see him burying his stuff back because he doesn't want to live that lifestyle anymore because of what he likely promised to his wife. And when Kimura pretty much forced him out of retirement, you can see his pain when he gears back up to do the mission that Kimura wants him to do. John Wick isn't doing this till there's no one left. He's forced into this line of work against his will because there's no one else like John Wick that can pull off half of the shit he does. So yeah, the analysis portion wasn't too bad outside of what I mentioned just now. So yeah, the analysis portion wasn't too bad outside of what I mentioned just now. And some of the jokes don't really land, at least for me. Like the exploding pen, for example. Seriously, the joke drags on in the middle portion of John Wick's analysis. So, how's the fight? Was it great? Well, that's where we hit the problems I have with the episode. And it all comes down to the fight and the animation. Jesus Christ. I am not exaggerating when I say this, but I think this is one of the most unappealing animations that Screw Attack has ever done in recent memory. Now to start off with the positives, I do love the story of the fight. It does feel like a solid reason for a fight. The idea of Bond being sent to kill John Wick by the MG6 due to John Wick's reputation as a deadly assassin is very clever. I also like that they added John Wick using anything as a weapon trope that he's known for, such as the case when he takes James Bond's pen and trying to stab him with it as a nice homage to John Wick using a pencil, to the point where John Wick has clicked the pen so many times that even James Bond lost count just for the pen to explode right after he says that. Got a good laugh out of me. Another highlight is James Bond activating his car to shoot at John Wick, for then John Wick to shoot at the device that controls Bond's car, causing it to lose control and start shooting everywhere, so both James Bond and John Wick have to fight while dodging the bullets from the car was pretty good. The reference to the iconic James Bond shooting at the camera bit to show that John Wick got hit from the bullet was a pretty nice touch. And the best highlight for me at least, even when John Wick gets hit with the bullet, as the bullets shoot in 8 different directions in John's body, bypassing the bulletproof suit, and John Wick still having the durability and the will to keep pushing through the pain as James Bond keeps firing 2 more bullets at John Wick, was really cool, showing the insane level of durability and guts to take crazy amount of punishment that John Wick is known for within the movies. And the ending was good, with Bond using the chandelier as Bond's car shoots at the wounds of John's back. Now on to the things I really don't like about this episode, and that is the animation. Like I said before, I believe this is the most unappealing animation that Screw Attack has made in quite a while, and it ultimately comes down to a few things. This is something that I've noticed a while ago with their newer style of animation, to the point where I'm kind of debating myself if I should make a video about the topic, and that is that this animation looks really ugly. I don't know what it is, but the way how the models look, to also the arena and such, looks so bland at best and bad to ugly at worst. Some reason I couldn't help but notice the animation looks blurry at points. Like with this scene where James Bond tells John Wick that he can't leave him be, or most of the time they spend upstairs, or when they have the knife fight, it took me out of the immersion at points because it looked like it's in low quality, even when I had it set to 1080p on YouTube. But what I think is the biggest offender, to me at least, is how badly the movements are. I think I'm one of the lesser few people who don't mind a bit of jankiness too much compared to other people, as long as it's not permanently throughout the rest of the animation. But holy shit, I could not get over how janky this animation was. The whole first portion was janky as all hell. When Bond leaps over the counter looks so wrong and awkwardly feels too slow. John Wick reacting and falling down when he gets hit by James Bond's cigarette gadget legit looks like there wasn't enough space within the motion tweening to make that feel a bit smoother. Combat fighting throughout feels really slow for no reason. I do not think a German suplex takes this long to execute, nor does a knife fight feel like it should take 20 minutes to swing, even at a reasonable speed. Legit Bond's car, I think, had the more smoother movement, and all it really did was just drift in a circle. Another thing is that this animation feels textureless, if that makes sense. There is parts where I feel like the models or the environments lack any real texture and feels either flat or pre-rendered. It's kind of hard to explain why, but I think you might know what I mean if you look good enough. And I don't know if it's just me who feels this, but I don't think the ending was conveyed very well. What I mean by that is that it felt like there should be more at the end. When Bond crashes the chandelier onto John Wick, it feels like John is about to somehow survive the crash and then shoot James Bond or something like that. Because it isn't like John Wick got impaled by the chandelier or anything like that. And if it was, it did not portray that very well. If it showed it in a similar way to how Nathan Drake's death was in Nathan Drake vs. Lara Croft, where you see the helicopter blade fully impale Drake, then you would know that he's dead. But for here, it just looks like it fell without anything penetrating him. And finally, I think my last issue with the fight is that it never tapped into its full potential. If there is one thing I could say about James Bond versus John Wick as a whole, is that it has a good fight dynamic with a solid amount of potential with some really creative segments, but the fight never reaches to that. Instead of them fighting in one building for the rest of the runtime, why not have them fight outside in the rainy night? Why not give John Wick his car? That way you can have a really good car chase between James Bond and John Wick's car as they try to shoot at one another. Why not have John Wick try to use some of James Bond's gadgets against him, since, John Wick uses anything as a weapon? Why not have the final standoff between James Bond and John Wick in a similar fashion as Solid Snake vs. Sam Fisher's ending, where both James Bond and John Wick try to see who can land the final killing blow with nothing but their pure skill alone in the night sky rain. Anything similar to that. That way it doesn't feel like the bare minimum was tapped into. In the end, is James Bond versus John Wick a bad episode? No, not necessarily. but it isn't anything breathtaking either. It has its merits, and the stuff that I mention are things I feel that the episode does really good at. But there's so much stuff that holds it back from being great. With the bad animation, bad visuals, underwhelming fight that we got, it brings it down a lot. At best, it's a 5 out of 10. It's a decent enough episode. There are good things within the episode, but there isn't a whole lot to make it fantastic that it could have been. This isn't to offend anybody in the animation department because I'm sure they are working with whatever they can work with, but whatever that they have currently for the 3D fights just aren't really working at all, and just makes me wish that Torian can return and continue do more of the 3D fights like he used to, because it just doesn't feel right anymore ever since he stopped doing them. Either way, this episode's gonna be outdated within a year when John Wick Chapter 4 comes out, so hopefully John Wick can get a better episode against his actual requested opponent, Agent 47, but time will tell. So those were my thoughts on James Bond vs. John Wick. Let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments below. I'm interested to see what you think. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Also, the next time is hype.